Good evening. Four criteria of electronic music. The first criterion is the unified time structuring. The second criterion is the splitting of the sound. The third, the multi-layered spatial composition. The fourth, the equality of sound and noise, or better, of tone and noise. I would like to thank you very much for coming to listen to what I want to say about these four criteria. One might ask, why are they interesting? As there is electronic music, and everybody can make up his mind what to think about this music. New means change the method. New methods change the experience, and new experiences change man. In particular in the field of music, because the sound waves penetrate very deep into the molecular and atomic layers of ourselves. Whenever we hear sound, we are changed, we are no longer the same after having heard certain sounds. And this is the more the case when we hear organized sounds, organized by another human being, music. At about 1950, it was no longer self-understood that a sound is a sound. Because the idea to compose the sounds themselves came up as a result, we might say, of the historical development, the school of Vienna, of the Viennese composers, had reduced the musical objects, the themes, the motives, to entities of only two sounds, intervals. Webern in particular, Anton von Webern. And when I started to compose music, I certainly was a child of the spirit of the first half of the century. Continuing and widening what the composers of the first half had prepared. And it took a little step to have the idea to compose a single sound, to synthesize the sound. I should immediately say that it was a second thought, because I started analyzing all sorts of sounds. I recorded sounds in the Musée de l'Homme in Paris, where you can find all the exotic instruments. Instruments of wood, of stones, the lithophones, of metal, of all different cultures, and of all the different historical periods. But I also analyzed sounds which I recorded in the daily life. All sorts of noises. I began to study books. in which you can find the analysis of vowels of the classical musical instruments. And one by one, not having had any good training at the music conservatory or at the university in acoustics, one by one, I became aware that the sound is not just a sound. And I became very interested in the differences between the sounds. What is the difference between a piano sound and a vowel ah and the sound of the wind? And after having analyzed a lot of sounds, this second thought came up. It was always implied, if I can analyze sounds which exist already, which I can record, why can I not try to synthesize sounds in order to find new sounds, if possible? And at that time, we had only instruments which tried to imitate classical instruments. We find them in bars. Not yet in the symphony orchestras, because the symphony orchestra up to now is a fairly closed sound world because of its social composition. So, for example, no electric organs of the modern type of organs can be found in symphony orchestras easily. But, for example, in pop groups nowadays, you will find a lot of equipment that has been produced by companies who have started building instruments with keyboards and certain registers like organ stops to imitate trumpets, flutes, clarinets, etc. They add now more and more gimmicks to transform these sounds. Nevertheless, there was this catalog, if I might say, of a certain variety of timbres, as we say, like a painter who has got a certain collection of colors which you can buy, and then he starts mixing them. The classical instrumentation up to the present day, with the instruments which we can name, has been an art of mixing. The idea to synthesize a sound must have something that is more basic, more simple than the sounds you can find in the daily life. And I started investigating in acoustic laboratories what might be available as the most simple sound wave, for example, sine wave generators, which were used for measurement. And I started very primitively to synthesize individual sounds by superimposing sine waves in harmonic spectrums in order to make etc., all the vowels. And then I found one by one generators which produce what we call the white noise, comparable to the white color, and which you can filter with electric filter in order to produce colored noise, like etc. 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 In order to produce colored noise, like etc.